What's up, Vetters? Patrick here with Vetted. Today we are talking about Steven Greer, a UFO researcher named UAP Gerb, went on the Danny Jones podcast and spoke about why Steven Greer is slowly losing credibility amongst whistleblowers. At least that's according to him and according to a post that Danny Jones put up on Twitter. You can see it right here. Top UFO investigator UAP Gerb discusses why Steven Greer is a suspicious figure in the disclosure space and is losing credibility among UFO whistleblowers. I'll get into it a little bit later, but I have a little bit of a history with UAP Gerb which is what makes this so surprising, and I'll get into that as we get into this video. So what do you say? Let's jump into this Danny Jones clip talking about Steven Greer and some, I would consider them bombshell allegations against Steven Greer, to be honest with you. Shots fired, as they say. Now, please hit that like button, Vetters. That really helps out the videos. And of course, hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. All right, roll the clip.
But yes, it is true that Jake Barber was tasked to infiltrate Greer's camp and kind of try and maybe set up whistleblowers. I don't know. I think the question needs to be asked, did Greer know this? Was Jake sent in to promise him high-level information, and did Greer know about this and willingly let Barber in, knowing that he was an agent for possibly an agency? Because around the same time, 2023, there are multiple Greer whistleblowers who I have found in Greer's DPI archive, his Disclosure Project Initiative archive, and I formed friendship and relationships with, that contacted Greer, and always in 2023, they started facing reprisals. They started getting threats to their pension. There's one guy in Greer's archive under the number 10892. This guy talks about being on an alien reproduction vehicle retrieval team at Nellis Air Force Base and kind of witnessing the touchdown of a Sunflower extraterrestrial craft. That he cut off contact with Greer because he was threatened with inappropriate, explicit underage content.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And so this stuff all happened started really ramping up around 2023. And so is there a connection there? One must ask. It's quite perplexing.
It really is, man.
But also, who knows? Greer's operational security is absolutely abhorrent. So there's no excuse that I should be able to go into his archives and be able to track down some of the whistleblowers. No excuse.
Right.
The operational security is so bad. I should not be able to do that. But yeah. I'm just glad that it was me who was able to do that with some people and not somebody else, unless agency folks have done that and kind of tracked down whistleblowers and threatened them with their pension. Because some of these high-level whistleblowers have spoken to Greer in the past, because he's really was the only guy to turn to for a long time, right? He ran the Disclosure Project.
Yeah, that's the crazy thing about him. I mean, a lot of people, everybody fucking hates Greer for the most part. I've never heard anyone say anything nice about him except for Jesse Michaels. Jesse Michaels is the one person who's like, bro, you got to give him credit. He's been doing this forever. He's brought forward the most amount of whistleblowers that have divulged the most amount of information. So take it for what it's worth. He's done more harm than good, or no, I'm sorry, more good than harm.
All right. So early when I said that I had a history with UAP Gerb, it's kind of interesting. It's not that I have a direct history with him. I've never spoken to him actually, but you see, early on with Vetted, I had covered the Michael Herrera story, and Michael Herrera and UAP Gerb are good friends, as he readily admits, right, at becoming friends with some of these whistleblowers. And he was working with another UFO researcher named Joey Is Not My Name, and they were covering the Michael Herrera story. And I had Nathan from Michael Herrera's squad, his team leader, on to interview him. And Nathan went against Michael Herrera's story, right, clearly. And so I'm the only one with that interview, and I found it to be a little interesting, to be honest with you, because there was just some shadiness with Joey Is Not My Name, that UFO researcher. And to be fair, maybe I was a little unfair, I connected that with UAP Gerb as well. And so I kind of always thought the UAP Gerb was so closely with like Steven Greer, and he was basically kind of compromised in a lot of ways. And I don't know if I could really trust his research, because he's always touted as this great researcher. And it's interesting because he's going on all these podcasts. He went on Jesse Michaels, he's on Danny Jones, now he's going to be on Chris Ramsey. These are people I respect a lot. So for them to tout UAP Gerb as the best UFO researcher in the world, And I was just wondering, where is he getting his information? Is he getting the information from these whistleblowers? Doesn't really make him the best UFO researcher, right? Is he connecting dots that other people aren't? Like, what makes someone a good UFO researcher? How much time is he investing? Does he have a real job? Is his job just to do the UFO research? I don't know. I mean, I know what it takes to cover this topic and to look into this topic, and it's a lot of work. So unless it's your full-time job, I'm just not sure how you're making that happen unless you have no life, no family, no girlfriend or wife or kids or anything to do, right? So I guess that's what I'm most curious about. Nobody's asked UAP Gerb, maybe Chris Ramsey will. How do you do this research, right? How are you doing this research, and why are people saying you're the best UFO researcher, right? But it is interesting to hear him go after Greer here, quite hard, in fact. And it sounds like he's mistreated some of his, quote, friends who have become his friends, right? These whistleblowers. And I'm not sure what good of an idea that is, to become friends with the person you're sort of investigating, right? It doesn't make any sense to become friends with these whistleblowers. Now, to each their own. Maybe you can become friends with these whistleblowers. They're just regular people, right? But it then does become very much harder to then determine whether or not they're telling the truth. Because once they're your friend, it's at a whole nother level, right? It's a whole nother level of like things. I get it. I take care of my friends. I protect my friends. So I get it. If someone's your friend, you want to look out for them. And look, it doesn't make me any better to not believe Michael Herrera's story. And it doesn't make UAP Gerb any better to believe Michael Herrera's story. It doesn't determine our integrity, whatsoever. But I guess I'm just curious what his process is that makes him so good. What does he have access to information some of us don't? Is he being fed information that he then feeds out to other people, right? To the audience, to us. So just curious. Or is he just a regular guy looking into this? Could be that as well. So let me know what you think of UAP Gerb down in the comments, because again, I did think he had this special relationship with Steven Greer, but turns out he never met him.
I've never spoken to Greer. I don't plan to. He and I don't have a good relationship. He called me an intelligence asset. So I'm not too, and he's also hurt many of my friends. So I'm not too high up on Greer. I think that he kind of has his own vested interest in a lot of the testimonies he receives. I think he treats whistleblowers that come to him like his whistleblowers.
Yes.
Instead of their own autonomous people that should be directed to, people like David Grush to disclose to, or Senate Select Committee on Intelligence. And so I think it's very complicated, but I'm not a huge fan. I don't really like being called an intelligence asset or him hurting my friends.
Yeah. No, there's definitely some personality quirks there.
But what I would like to see is, how he always calls out Lou Elizondo?
Yes, he's got this crazy. There's this crazy dynamic between him and Lou Elizondo, and I'd love to hear what you think about that. I would rather err on the side of like pushing for disclosure instead of like trying to get into like interpersonal problems and so forth, especially a character like Lou, who is surrounded by a lot of controversy. Yeah.
I do think, and all I'll say is I think more questions need to be asked in documents void about his time at CIFA in the early 2000s, the counterintelligence field activity.
Oh, yeah.
On a pedestal of like high level whistleblowers, I put David Grush and then others. But I don't like to engage in the drama, but I would like to see a debate between those two, Greer and Elizondo. That would be really fantastic and interesting to see. Because Greer always calls Elizondo a asset, basically, a disinformation asset.
Well, don't they have the same lawyer? Isn't Danny Sheehan represent both of them?
Yeah, Sheehan used to work for the Disclosure Project. I don't know if he still does. A lot of people used to work for the Disclosure Project. Leslie Kean, the article of the 2017 New York Times article, she used to work for Steven Greer back in the early 2000s. And I talked to her I snuck my way in back in November by the UFO hearings into the Disclosure Fund event. And I talked to her a long time. She's brilliant. She
Leslie?
She knows quite a bit, but she even used to work with Greer. And I think back in the day, Greer had a little bit of a different mindset. I think maybe some of the problems with him arose more in the future, but that drama between the two is pretty interesting.
Yeah, man. When you start to paying too much attention to like the personalities and like the UFO celebrities and the drama, you start to get like lost in this whole thing. And I think it's probably intentional.
And then
the combination of like Twitter, people on Twitter, you know, arguing about who's right and who's wrong, and then you mix in the fact that everyone's trying to sell a book or a documentary or a movie, and they're building their careers on this stuff. You know, I'm not innocent of it. I do podcasts. I make money on podcasts about UFOs. So I try not to make it my whole personality and my whole identity as much as I possibly can. But, you know, there's just so much fucking bullshit to go through, bro.
All right, guys. So let me know what you think down in the comments. It is interesting to hear from UAP Gerb, and again, to wonder what his research process is and what dots is he connecting that others aren't. And at the end of the day, what is the best evidence for non-human intelligence on this planet? That's all we're looking for, right? Anything else is sort of moot, right? And, you know, teach their own in this journey. And I would just advise anyone to keep one foot in outside of UFOs while you keep one foot into UFOs, right? If you're looking into UFOs, don't forget to keep one foot outside and reality. Because you don't want to go too far, too deep, and you don't want to be used, right? If some of these whistleblowers, quote, befriend you, and then they think they can pass things through you, information through you. It becomes very easy because you think they're your friend, right? So it's almost like going undercover, right? And you become friends with somebody, and sometimes those friendships can be real, right? But then you have to then turn against them, and you will do things to them. You will manipulate them. So I hope UAP Gerb isn't being manipulated by some of these whistleblowers, and he's actually built genuine relationships. So, all right, y'all. Let me know what you think in the comments. We'll see you on the next video. Link down below to the full interview with UAP Gerb on Danny Jones. Again, look out for his interview coming out on Chris Ramsey's channel. And again, I hope Chris asks him about his process of researching and what makes him so good. All right, vetters, we'll see you in the next one. Remember, every day's a gift, y'all. Peace.